I'd like to turn now to Elliot. You are probably still finding the executive washroom at the Charter School District in the reflective building over on Forest Drive. But you have a lot of experience and a lot that you can say to us today, because have experience with achievement school districts, but also charter schools. So first of all, give us a lay of the land on where we are in charter schools in South Carolina now. Hearing Barry Wynn earlier today, I thought back to the 80s and the 90s. I remember we had none. North Carolina was booming with charter schools, and we had nothing. But things are going a little better for South Carolina with charter schools, but we're not really quite there.
on our short list, or the ASD short list. They're all being looked at in districts. And so by this time next year, there might be 0 schools in Memphis that aren't either getting much better or are in the ASD. And I don't know what I'm saying, this is just, the thing that's starting to happen there that's really phenomenal is, if you go to Memphis now, there are all these parent groups. There's a parent group called Memphis Lift, and they're the parents who are in the schools experiencing this. And instead of the ASD this summer knocking on doors, which I spent my first 9 months in Tennessee knocking on doors, it's actually the parents in the schools that are in the ASD and in the I-Zone and are getting better who are leading the effort. So they're going out and they're doing all the campaigning and outreach and saying, look what this has done with my child, it's changed my child's life. And they're becoming the voice of the change that's happening there. And I feel like if we don't figure out a way for us in this room and us on this panel to not be the voice, but actually the people who are served by this intervention, by this reform, who benefit most from the reform, then this won't last and won't have an impact. And so just proud to see that starting to happen in Memphis, where you can go there and you can stand up in almost any community and you can meet the parents who are actually living this and seeing the benefits of it.
Let's thank Elliot as well. Thank you.